Good evening, all of you. Welcome to the second episode of Spotlight by Dineout Passport. The first one was held a few weeks ago. This is another one that's being held today. And this is basically bringing together two very, very wonderful friends that I know from two ends of the world. One of them sitting in the UK and the other sitting in Australia. I personally would like to welcome Sarah Todd. She doesn't need too much of an introduction, but she was MasterChef Australia's finalist, then subsequently became a TV presenter the world over, and then opened some fantastic restaurants in India as well as in Australia, plus has had the opportunity to cook for all the Australian Open champions that have been around there. So Sarah, welcome to the program.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Rocky. I'm excited. Hi Atul.
Atul, you don't need any introduction. You've been around for quite some time. I've had the good fortune of dining with you at Benares, and I thoroughly enjoyed my experience there. You've given us a lot of pride by getting a Michelin star right at the very beginning of your career, and I'm so proud that you've retained it all these years. And congratulations for your your restaurant Mathura and Saga here in India. So welcome, Atul Kochhar. Welcome to Spotlight.
Well, thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure to see you. Feel very small in front of people like yourself. You've always been the leading light for all of us. Very, very honored to be on this show.
Thank you, sir, so very much, Atul. It's extremely kind of you. But that's not going to make the questions any easier. I'll go through a battery of about 5 questions, which I will pose to both of you at the same time. And whoever wants to take it first is most welcome, because I'm not going to specifically ask the individual. But my only request is, let's try and keep the answers as crisp as possible. So the first one is the obvious one. What motivated you to start what you did?
I think the moment that I realized was from a very young age, when I realized that food has no, it speaks every language. It doesn't matter what country you go to, who you're with, it brings people together.
My Nana was a baker, and I grew up looking at my grandfather and my father cooking food all day, and I absolutely fell in love with it. In the era when everyone was going to become a doctor and an engineer, I declared that I'm going to hotel school, which was really looked down upon me. I was the black sheep of the family for a very long time to come. But slowly, luckily, and thanks for MasterChef India and people like Sarah, that thing has been dispelled now. Now people look up to me as a hero, which is fantastic. Now, lots of my niece and nephews want to become chef. So thank you, Sarah, for doing that. You are an icon there. My niece absolutely loves you.
What got you pushing out of your comfort zone and redefining boundaries internationally?
Well, I have to say, Benares was actually one of the first Indian restaurants that I went to. One day I literally was like, you know what, this is the industry that I want to be in. So I gave myself a year. I went to Le Cordon Bleu in London and spent 12 months doing the course there. And, I would come home to my son's family, and, the parents are Punjabi. So we'd be eating these Punjabi dishes at night. I'd be going to French school, in the day. And you can imagine the grandma competing. Even if I'm bringing food home from Le Cordon Bleu, she's still making Indian food. So it was a battle of whose food would make it to the table. I decided to, apply for MasterChef in Australia, and went back, and I ended up cooking aloo gobi, which I'm sure everyone has heard in MasterChef. And, the night that episode aired in India, I had about 50,000 followers on my social media. So I was like, what? I was literally like, is this spam? Like, what's going on? My whole cooking style has developed and changed. And it really has been over these last 6-7 years that I have found my own style. And that is, all the experiences that I've had across India combined with that classical French training. And, it's just, that's how my style has kind of evolved, and I love it.
I always had to justify my position and who I was, even when I was in India, to be honest. So growing up in a Punjabi family in Bihar, I was always a Punjabi. Going back to Punjab to meet my cousins, I was a Bihari. When I went to Chennai, I was a North Indian boy, Hindi speaking boy. Came back to Delhi to work for Oberoi's, I had a strong South Indian accent. So suddenly I was a Madrasi. So I couldn't find myself. What is happening to me? And I kind of struggled with the identity part of it, but I was extremely comfortable by using flavors from the different parts of the country and fusing them and making dishes. And I worked under a French German chef when I was working at Oberoi's, and I cooked for him and his family one evening. And he said, Atul, you know what? Your cuisine is at a different level, and I think you will struggle to cook food like this at the moment in India. India is at least 15, 20 years behind what you are trying to do. Step out and do something different. So I took encouragement from that and started looking for jobs abroad. I applied in several places, never got any response. Then I thought, okay, I have a great passport called Indian passport, and I have great culinary skills. Find a job. So I found a job as an Indian chef in London and came here. My father paid me a surprise visit, and looked at my food after 3 years. And he looked at my food and he said, aren't you cooking like an Indian? I said, Dad, I'm supposed to do that. He said, no, you're not. A great responsibility and honor of a cook is to wherever you go, you use the local produce and you become part of that place and cook with your own vigor and own passion. So I kind of understood what he was saying. And he gave a very classic example. That time, Gordon Ramsay had just opened his 2 Michelin star place called Aubergine. Dad was a foodie, so he went to eat in his place. And he said, look, he's a 2 Michelin star chef. He has got something called monkfish curry, and he's incredibly proud of it. Why don't you take an inspiration and do something? And that kind of opened my eyes. And I started working with all the farmers here, went to farms and trained with them, went to a fishmonger, did proper training that what fish we land, what do we get in which season. Same with the butchery. And my food started changing. And 2 years later, I landed up with a Michelin star because my passion just connected with that. And I told my dad, I got a Michelin star. He said, well, you know what? Those stars are given to burn tires, not to give anything else. So, you carry on with your food. So that was his humble way of putting food in simple matter. And I kind of never looked back, to be honest. And I think my father has always been my hero, my leading light. He's not there now, but I try to listen to his words, which he used to whisper once in a while. He was a bit of a quiet man, but a man of wisdom and great sound sense of how food should be done. So I think...
Have you ever conceived a dish, Atul, in an unusual place, like when having a bath? But I don't want to carry on and say anymore. If yes, did you make it? And have you added that to any of your menus?
The answer is yes. And most of the brilliant ideas come in the most weird times, to be honest, believe it or not. So there was a recipe which is used a lot in my menus at the moment across all my restaurants. It's called chicken tikka pie. And I honestly conceived that in shower. And I decided, okay, I got to do something about it. Chicken tikka and pie. These are the 2 favorite dishes of this nation. Why can't I do it?
Yes, absolutely.
And I managed to do that. And it worked out incredibly well.
They often, for me, happen on a flight when I'm returning from somewhere, because, there was this trip where I was in Rajasthan and they cooked this stunning lal mas, in the ground for the entire day. And I was flying back for the Australian Open, and I used an Australian lamb rack, saltbush lamb. So it's a lot more milder kind of lamb. Using all Australian produce. So it was lal mas, it was Australian lamb rack, and I did a nettle saag. So nettle is an Australian, greens, similar, but it was kind of this mixture of both, flying back from Rajasthan to Australia.
Have you ever been stopped for a photograph by a fan where the others around that fan who's taking your photograph is asking this question, but who is this?
I had one incident. It was quite funny in Australia, and my son was with me, and I was thinking, I just want to know what my son is thinking, because it's like, why are these people taking a photograph with me? Like, does he know what's going on? And so anyway, they took this picture, and then I was like to my son, and this must have been 3 or 4 years ago, so he must have been 6. And I was like, babe, how does that make you feel when that happens? Like, do you understand why they're doing it? And he was like, yeah, you're famous.
So I had this very funny situation. I worked at Tamarind that time and just won my first Michelin star. And that time, Mr. Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman were a couple, and they were eating at Tamarind. So I went to their table out of politeness to find out how the food was and is everything okay. They had 2 little kids as well with them. While I was having this chat, a table next to them got up, came with a camera and said, "Can I take a picture?" So Mr. Cruz said, "Sorry, we are eating at the moment and we won't like it." He said, "Sorry, we're not asking you. Can we take the picture for the chef, please?" So I honestly didn't know where to look.
That's a memorable one. Great one. You have been on many live shows, and have you forgotten the recipe of what you are cooking? And how did you get out of that situation?
I was cooking on Saturday Kitchen with James Martin, and I was cooking tandoori roast chicken. And I had made spice butter that would go under the skin of the chicken. And there were 2-3 other elements. And it's a live show. So, you make a mistake, you can't come out of it. And there were 2 ovens in which you put the marinated chicken in. And before the show, you would have kind of part cooked the other one, which you will take it out. And when I put the oven, when I put my the fresh one which I had made into the top drawer, I was supposed to take it out from the lower drawer of the oven. I totally forgot and got into some other work. And then in a hurry, I rushed back to the oven to bring the chicken out. And I brought the raw chicken out. I thought this is perfectly cooked. And I knew I'm going to look monkey here. So I just made it fun. I said, guys, I just wanted to show you this is how the raw chicken looks. And James started laughing. And, I made it so lighthearted because it was a live show. Mm-hmm. You can't just keep on making the mistake again and again. So the best was to say, I'm really sorry. I'm going to put this back and get the right one out. So that's how I corrected myself. But I've never been so embarrassed in my life.
Well, I was going to say another dish, but because you're talking about raw chicken, I've changed my mind. But the reason why I got eliminated in MasterChef was because I ran out of time and my chicken was raw. And so I've made this roulade. And as you know, with a roulade, it just comes down to timing. And I literally just ran out of time. I was just like, please just put it in the microwave, 30 seconds, it'll be done and cooked. But unfortunately, that's how I got eliminated from MasterChef, just running out of time. But, I think ultimately as a chef, we are constantly coming up with new ideas all the time. So I think when you're in that live situation, you can just change the dish. You just think, oh, I'm going to do this now, right? You forget what recipe you've written before because you just kind of go with whatever you're feeling like doing at that moment. So if anyone's got the recipe, they'll be like, you missed out this and this and this. It's like, well, every time I cook the dish, it's probably always a little bit different.
When invited by friends and family, have you ever been pushed into the kitchen to cook?
All the time. You just end up being the person that's cooking every time because most people tend to get a little bit self-conscious when you're coming over for dinner, so they tend to push you into the kitchen most of the time, which I'm okay with. But it's also nice sometimes to just be cooked for. So, and I don't mind if it's something simple or it doesn't need to be super fancy. It's when people just cook from the heart, it's also amazing. So and it does.
And do you enjoy doing that? Do you enjoy being pushed into the kitchen?
Yeah, always. You know what? It's just like, I think that cooking with people around, having a glass of wine, like it's ultimately part of the whole experience. And, I love having people come early when you're finishing and cooking and, all stand around in the kitchen. I think that's the best part about it.
Every other year, I take a long extended holiday in Atlantic Canada, where my uncle and aunt lives. They live in a very, very beautiful part of Canada. So I go and see them and keep an eye on them. So aunt is a great cook, so is uncle. But when I arrive, they both decide that, okay, they are done for next 2 weeks till Atul is here. And I'm quite happy with that.
Do you have anybody's name saved on your phone under a code name?
So, it happens that you meet several people, and sometimes it's just a small talk and it leads to nothing. And you actually don't have any significance of that person in your life, or they will make any difference. So I'm not being crude, but I'm being honest, because there's only so much time and you need to focus on people who mean a lot to you. So I have saved few numbers like that. I don't say the name. I call it time pass 1, time pass 2, time pass 3. So,
okay, I'm gonna check your phone next time. That's all.
I'd like to find out if my name is there. Time pass 1 time. But here's a controversial one. To both of you, what would you do if you woke up as me, Rocky Mohan?
Okay, Sarah, you do first.
No, you go first.
I'll go first. Okay. So I don't think I'll change anything. I'll continue to eat and drink the way Rocky Mohan would do it. And those are very big boots to step into. Probably my both feet will get into only one boot only. So I think I'll just continue to follow the footsteps and change nothing.
Yeah, I think I'd probably pick your brain a little bit. And, I'm sure you've experienced so much of restaurateurs in India and food. And, I think that's incredible. So I'd probably, just stick around and see what's going on in there.
If you were a product, what would be your tagline?
Always spices.
Spices.
Yeah,
So easy to use.
gosh.
Spices.
Mine would be I love chili and I love chili sauces, so it would be spice it up.
It suits her quite a bit. Spice.
Does that mean I get 1 point and he doesn't?
Yeah, you do. You I knew you were a lot spicier than I am.
2 Indian chefs you would like to judge for the final round of MasterChef India.
Manish Mehrotra and Kunal Kapoor.
I would say Atul, and I would say also Manish Malhotra. I think, Atul, you've just smashed it outside of India and done, such a great thing. It'd be nice to have that perspective coming into the Indian MasterChef as well.
If you could switch lives with one person for a day, who would it be?
I would switch it with Sarah. I would love to see Australia for a day.
You're trying to get brownie points, aren't you? Someone like a Gordon Ramsay, or, I think I just love the food scene in the UK, and I hope that one day I can make it back to the UK to live, and and I just think there's some really great stuff happening in the UK.
One vice you wish you could give up, Sarah?
It'd have to be like caramel. I cannot stop eating caramel. I would never want to give up red wine because I love it too much, but caramel, it's disgusting. I can't stop eating caramel.
Atul, what vice are you giving up?
Very hard to give up anything, I tell you. But I think I would like to give up ras malai because I'm addicted to it and I just can't stop eating. So I have to control myself. I'm not getting any younger.
Just to share with you, I gave up a vice a few years ago. I gave up smoking. So I feel very good about that.
Oh, great.
Good job. That's not an easy one to give up, and it's very worth it.
But it was so unusual. I just threw the cigarettes out of the window, and that was the end of it.
Fantastic.
Wow, congratulations. Yeah.
Go on, guys. Now this is going to be the tough one. You got to put on your thinking caps. An alleged rumor about you that wasn't true.
I never had any rumor. Everything has been fact, so that's a bit of a problem.
Let's create one.
The biggest I wouldn't say rumor, but something gone wrong. So I purposely don't put my family's pictures on social media often. And on a launch of one of my restaurants a few years ago in Mumbai, I'm standing with a bunch of people, and one of the newspapers picked up a lady standing next to me as my wife. And whenever you Google my wife, her picture comes up. And that annoys hell out of my wife and annoys hell out of me as well. So my mission is to get that corrected. And I've thought of putting my wife's pictures back on media so that people know who my wife is.
There is this rumor around when I was in MasterChef that they thought that I was planted and I was like an actor contestant, and that I was like faking it all, like that I couldn't actually cook, and that I was this actor placed in to make the be in the competition, which is obviously not true. I'm not an actor, if anyone's seen my acting skills. But yeah, I don't know where that came from.
But that's a good rumor to have, because you've actually, at the end of the day, become quite a celebrity star on television. So it's all right.
Absolutely.
Okay, we still got this rapid fire to go.
Oh, still okay.
So question number 7, Sarah, addressed to you. The first thing you'd notice about a man?
I think it would be like passion and intelligence. I like people that really, are driven and have a passion for something and really go after it. I like people that are, can just fight for, to get success, basically.
For me, it's about the aura and the persona. If a lady enters a room, it talks a lot about who she is and how she carries herself. That tells me a lot. And then at the moment she speaks, I think I get drawn into it, that what she's made up of. So these are the few things, and I always allow other person to talk to me first. I take a moment, say hello, big hello, and a warm smile, but that opens them up, and then they speak very easily. So I've always found that the way people carry themselves says a lot about them.
Okay, we'll stay with you, Atul, for this one. Your idea for date night?
Ooh. Has been very long, right? So I have to think about it. And working long hours as a chef, I've kind of forgotten. So my date night is night in, to be honest, most of the time. And I prefer it that way. And often date night, there are very few because now kids they're not kids anymore. They are teenagers. So me and Deepthi, we like to watch a movie together, open a great bottle of wine. There's a designated cook in the house, so she doesn't have to worry who will cook. And always, seafood is on the menu. So we both of us absolutely love seafood. So
fantastic.
I would cook that the way she likes it.
So date night done. Sarah, your date night?
Oh gosh, mine's kind of similar, to be honest. I think it's like, you're constantly out and about when, you've got restaurants and different things. So, but in saying that, I love, going to, the countryside, going for, driving out somewhere, an hour from the city, maybe a winery, or, being outside of the hustle and bustle. I really love that. I think, going to just a nice lunch or dinner outside the city is my kind of relaxing date night, I would say.
Fantastic. Without disturbing the IRS in both your countries, the last thing you spent $1,000 or £1,000 on?
Well, I did just go literally to Flinders. So it's this beautiful, on Saturday night, I went to Flinders. My son did come with me. There was no romantic man, but we went and stayed in the wineries, a few of my friends, and just had some really beautiful dinners, and lots of good wine. And that was the last thing that I spent money on.
It was just before all the lockdown happened. Me and Deepthi had gone to Lake District, and we stayed in one of the cottages just in front of the main lake, Lake Demon. It was beautiful, really, really beautiful, and I think it was money well worth spent. Really loved it.
Lake District is beautiful. I've stayed at the Windermere many a time.
Windermere, yeah.
The last person you called or texted?
My mother.
Okay. Sarah?
Mine was as well. Mine was my mum. I was like, I got my jab. That's it. That was my last call before I got home. Otherwise, it was you, Rocky. You're...
Yes, I got your message. I got your message.
Yeah, exactly. You were the last person I spoke to.
Great. What's your most used emoji?
The smile and the hug.
Smile and hug.
That used to be mine. Now I love the love heart eyes smile, or like the monkey face, like, oh my gosh, what, you know.
I've done it again.
Yeah. Someone's done something, I've done something, there's something that we need to just rectify.
So thanks for enacting those, Sarah. That was good. Okay, a little serious now. What is that one trend in food that you want to have disappear?
I think that the one that already kind of has started disappearing, it's just the whole, food should come to the table obviously hot, right? I think if you play around with it, obviously it should look beautiful and it is the first sense that hits a dish. But if you spend, you see a lot of these trends where it's like a clock or something like that, where there's all these too much going on that obviously it's taken a long time for them to plate. And, it's impossible to keep a dish warm and, piping hot where there's too much being touched, I suppose. So I just think it's better that things are just a bit quicker, quickly plated, which I think it's already kind of starting
excessive plating is what you want to have disappearing. Atul?
Yeah.
I think that gastronomic or what they call it, molecular gastronomy, I think that's something I never warmed up to, and I still feel that wherever it's being used, I think it's time to say goodbye to it and get back to the real food. And I side with Sarah on this: the hot food, hot, cold food code, and that's how it should come to the table, so people can get the true enjoyment of the food.
Yeah, and like you said, with gastronomy, farmers put so much effort into growing the produce. You want to highlight the produce rather than demystifying it, turning it into something else, and then plating it. So I agree with you on that as well, for sure.
Overdoing the food is always the biggest sin, in my opinion. You get fantastic asparagus in good time. Make a guest taste how it tastes raw, how it tastes just lightly grilled, and how it would taste in a form of a soup or a sauce. And I think that says it all about that ingredient.
What's your guilty pleasure?
Chocolate.
And I think caramel.
Yeah, and good wine.
And good wine. Wine can't be a guilty pleasure.
Why?
Yesterday I had gone for a charity cooking for Sir Elton John. He's got Elton John Aid Charity Foundation. And there were 5 of us, and each chef was given a book like that, a box like that, which looks like a handbook. And I immediately knew that these are fantastic chocolates. And my wife controls my chocolate. So I said, oh, this is a new diary I've been given. I brought in my sled slightly. This is for the times when she's not home and I can have them.
Okay, inside or outside the kitchen, what is your pet peeve?
For me, everything has to be in its place. Everything has to be done well. I can't handle it where, stuff is everywhere and everything's messy and going from one step to, the other without resetting. And I'm like that in my home as well. Like everything has to be in the right spot and easy to find. I just find that if you're so busy, it's much easier to just be a bit more organized. So that's inside and out for me, for sure.
Atul?
Kind of similar, but my role a little bit changes. In my professional kitchens and even the kitchen in the house, I absolutely want spick and span and want everything to be right. And Dipti is exactly like that. But when we are outdoors, I want to cook with kids and I want them to have that fun. I let them go crazy, let them go wild. So everything is disorganized. And I kind of enjoy that kind of fun. That child comes out in me. And I made my son, I've tricked him a few times. I said, I think you should learn how to saute ice and how just tricking him. If he has to learn cooking, then you have to give him all those naughty tricks. But we have been through. You should make a burger of the grass. So all that things I've teased them to do, and got them to do it, and then say, no, this is not for you. These are for cows. You don't eat that. So they have grown up by being naughty outdoors with me, which I love, because if I remain too organized, they wouldn't become who they are.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me, what is the craziest compliment you've ever received for yourself or your food?
Oh, somebody calling me chef, you're beautiful. That's the craziest compliment.
I don't know whether it's the craziest, but I think, when I did my last dinner in Australia, the woman was literally like basically crying. She was just like so blown away with the food, and she's like,
Oh.
you have to tell your mum, she should be so proud of you. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like to think that food can touch someone that way is pretty incredible.
That's
Well,
emotion, actually. I quite love it, actually. If somebody has done that, it's fantastic.
I actually have a lot of affinity to that kind of emotion because I myself have been through it a number of times eating with various wonderful chefs. It's quite a cathartic experience when you get that thing working for you. Though it happens very few and far between, but it's a great one. Your celebrity crush, and what would you like to tell them?
So, celebrity crush. There is a female chef in San Francisco called Dominique Crenn. I think she's the coolest chef around, in my opinion. And the way she has led her life and who she has become, I absolutely admire and love her. She recently went through cancer, and I followed every step of hers and how she has come out of it also. So she's a real life hero for me. I absolutely adore and love her.
Who is the one person you would like to curate a meal for? And what would you like to feed them?
I don't know. I'm just saying this because the first thing that, and now that she's no longer having her show, I always dreamt of being on Oprah, actually. I wanted to go on there for food, and yeah, I mean, I think she's just such an incredible woman and what she's achieved. And, I think it'd be amazing to cook for her. And I think I'd cook her like my style food, like a set menu of some of my favorite dishes, but, the same style that I have where it's, that Indian influenced, classical kind of cooking. So I think that's what I would do.
I thought you would say Serena Williams or Roger Federer.
I've done that already. So.
Okay, the last question on rapid fire is the toughest out of them. One word to describe this episode with me on Spotlight by Passport.
One word is very difficult. So I had an essay for it. Unmissable.
I think passionate. I think it's, been pretty honest and straight up. So I'd say passionate.
Great. So would you guys like to know who the winner is? I've given some points here.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Well, this is a rapid fire, which has been very different from the one we did earlier. That was very different, and because we had three participants, as you might remember, we had Vineet, we had Asma, and we had Manish, and all three of them are really crazy good people, but good people. But today, I think, I'm going to put my hands up and say that it's a tie. Because honestly, both of you were passing questions to each other. So I think I will leave it as a tie.
Oh, it's been amazing, Rocky.
Absolutely. And I have been so obliged by both of you finding the time, one in Australia, one in the UK. You're starting your day, Atul. You're coming to the end of your day, Sarah. But it's been an absolute pleasure, and it's time for me to sign off. And I must say, it's been a wow episode. We shall look forward to interacting with you on a personal level when you are next in India. In the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and we shall see you soon.